At the moment I officially signed the agreement, I immediately took a photo with my phone and quickly sent it to Luke. The agreement has been signed, do you need Assistant Jean to come and pick it up? In the silence, 20 minutes slipped away quietly, and Luke's chat box received no response, like a silent grave. Just as I was considering whether I needed to call a local courier, Luke appeared at the door, panting. I was surprised that he came in person. After all, the person he deeply loved had already caused a stir in the city for half a year over the fight for a title. At this moment, his expression looked extremely anxious. Tell me, how do you plan to act? My tone was indifferent, not hiding my impatience. What I should give you has never been lacking by even a bit. 3 years ago, Luke gave me a lavish wedding, and since then, I have become his nominal wife. I have weathered storms with him, from a pair of impoverished spouses to our prominent status today. However, for the past 6 months, he has been looking for an opportunity to abandon me, in order to make room for that mistress. The property division agreement, he had modified it 19 times, and this time, I surprisingly signed it obediently. He seemed a bit puzzled. I smiled gently and handed the agreement to him. He opened it and confirmed that I had really signed my name, his expression immediately darkening. Lily, are you really willing to give up? I stared at him, feeling a sense of confusion in my heart. In the past, he always complained that I was inconsiderate and would get jealous at the slightest thing. And now, as I chose to leave quietly, he seemed even more displeased. Did he expect me to be tearful and beg him to stay? I smiled gently and said, what's inappropriate about this? You can be open and aboveboard with Ivy, and I can also replan my own life. In this agreement, including real estate, vehicles, company shares, and so on, he has clearly invested a lot. I do not oppose it. After all, the years spent enduring hardships together with him are my own experiences. Who would want the fruits of their hard work to be easily taken by others? Now, everything has finally settled. The wealth I have accumulated through my own efforts over the years, along with the portion he is about to give me, even if I start traveling the world tomorrow, it would be enough for me to live a prosperous life in my later years. Love may have faded, but at least I still have ample money as consolation. Luke's gaze was complicated, as if he had something to say, but he hesitated. At that moment, a gentle female voice suddenly broke the silence. Lily, thank you for being willing to fulfill us. That is Ivy, the treasure in Luke's heart, the golden phoenix that flew out from the remote mountains. She only has an ordinary bachelor's degree, but within just 3 months, she became the secretary of the president's office at the Chi Group. Her efforts to attract Luke are evident. Luke always said she was innocent and kind, worried that I would bully her. However, how could an innocent and kind person entangle herself with a married man, even sending bed photos to the original wife? I once couldn't accept it, crying and protesting in anger, even exposing their scandal in my fury, but the next day, all traces were erased. Luke's methods have always been swift and ruthless. Ironically, the methods he once used on others are now being used on me. After a lot of turmoil, I am utterly exhausted. My gaze flickers, and with a cold smile, I look down on the two of them with disdain. The agreement has been taken away, are you still not leaving? I issued the eviction order. This villa is already under my name. Since Luke frequently changed lovers, he rarely returned here. I feel the need to thoroughly disinfect the place if they stay here for even a second longer. Luke's expression grew increasingly dark. Lily, your feigned indifference is useless against me. Since you've already signed, don't regret it. He pulled Ivy towards the door. Wait. I called out to Luke, and he turned back, revealing the expected expression. Perhaps he thought I would regret it, but my reminder was, don't forget to transfer the money on time, and transfer the property to me as soon as possible. His expression froze instantly, then he gritted his teeth and said, you're quite impatient. Yes, how can I not be anxious? Because I am pregnant, and the father of the child is not him. If I don't completely sever ties with him, everything will become unmanageable. I carefully planned my prenatal checkup schedule, but unexpectedly ran into Luke and Ivy at the hospital. He was holding her hand, his meticulous care as if afraid the warmth around them would suddenly vanish. Ivy was like a happy little bird, chattering away nonstop, while he patiently listened, his eyes filled with tenderness and affection. The intimacy between them made it feel impossible to intrude. Memories engulfed me like waves, drowning me in an instant. Once, I was also the treasure in his heart. Time rushes by, and that memory seems to have been forgotten. The last time he looked at me with such deep affection was when I lost my child. At that time, the baby in my womb was already 4 months old. And he had another woman outside, that fearless girl who brazenly intruded into my life, demanding that I give up my place. I reproached her for her shamelessness, but she retorted that the one who is not loved is the true mistress. My self-esteem was ruthlessly trampled, and she pushed me hard, and just like that, the child left me. I was covered in blood and was rushed into the operating room. When I woke up, the first person I saw was Luke, his face full of regret. His eyes were filled with guilt as he tightly held my hand, tears welling in his throat. "I'm sorry, Lily. It's all my fault, go ahead and hit me, I'm sorry." In anger, I slapped him, and he didn't flinch, just silently endured it. Once I had vented my frustration, he said sadly, "Just this once, Lily, give me a chance to make it up to you, okay? We can have children again." He immediately sent that girl away and transformed back into a caring lover. However, the good times didn't last long. This situation only lasted for half a year. Then, a new girl appeared by his side, one young face after another, and before I had a chance to get familiar, they were already replaced. Ivy was the one who stayed by his side the longest. Today, we ran into each other by chance at the obstetrics and gynecology department, and it was incredibly awkward. I turned to leave, but Ivy's voice stopped me. "Lily, what a coincidence." She was like a small pendant, tightly leaning against Luke, a blush of shyness rising on her face. "I'm pregnant, I came to see the doctor." I watched her performance with a blank expression. Luke noticed the registration form in my hand, his brow furrowed. "What illness are you here to see?" I smiled gently. "Mr. Luke, it seems you shouldn't be too curious about your ex-wife's private matters in front of your current lover." He looked a bit irritated and actually pushed Ivy aside, gripping my wrist tightly. "Lily, I am your man. Your presence in the obstetrics department gives me the right to question you." I stared at him, my tone mocking. "My man? Mr. Luke, are you sure? Even though we had a grand wedding, I've always been single in the marriage registration system." Luke was taken aback for a moment, his expression growing even darker. Yes, that wedding was so romantic and grand. To outsiders, I was his only wife. But who knew that we had never actually obtained a marriage certificate? Every time I urged Luke to get the certificate, he always found various excuses to delay. His time was so precious that he couldn't spare half an hour to accompany me to get the certificate in 3 years. When we broke up, we fought endlessly over the distribution of money and power. He gripped my wrist so tightly it hurt, yet he refused to let go. It wasn't until the call bell rang and my name was announced that he reluctantly released me. I quickly passed by him and Ivy, entered the examination room, and locked the door, ignoring Luke's sullen expression. After the doctor carefully reviewed my examination report, he gave me some instructions and reminded me to bring the child's father next time. "He is dead." This sentence struck like thunder, causing the doctor, who had been focused on the case, to instantly look up, his eyes revealing sympathy. In a comforting tone, he offered his condolences, and I cooperatively displayed a sorrowful smile. Perhaps due to the fatigue of early pregnancy, I have been feeling drowsy lately. After returning from the hospital, I immediately fell into a deep sleep. In my hazy consciousness, it felt as if I had stepped into a labyrinth of dreams. In the beginning of the dream, it recreated the days shortly after my university graduation, when Luke's family business was facing bankruptcy, and he was once homeless. In that small rental room, he held me tightly, wrapping me snugly in his down jacket, with my head resting on the sound of his heartbeat. "Lily, wait for me to regain my wealth. I will definitely protect you and no longer let you suffer any hardships." He promised. "At the very least, I will hire 5 servants, one to cook for you, one to do your laundry, one to make your bed. The sound of his strong heartbeat was in my ears, and I was moved by his deep affection, naively believing that his love could overcome all difficulties. Later, he truly rose again and achieved brilliant success. But the people around him grew more numerous, those who came and went in a hurry, like the restless emotions he could not control. The end of the dream is a scene of chaos and shattered porcelain. I stand barefoot on the sharp fragments, crying in pain. He looks at me coldly, and, Lily, the way you are right now is truly unbearable. At that moment, I looked at him, the one who had once loved and walked alongside me, as if he had collapsed in an instant. I woke up from the dream, and it was already dark outside. As I groggily tried to get up, I was suddenly startled by a voice. I heard that. You are carrying my child and still spreading rumors outside, saying that I am already dead. I suddenly raised my head and saw a figure standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching me. The moonlight spilled over him, casting a silvery glow on his dark suit, making it look as if it had been coated in radiance. The room was unlit, and he was hidden in the shadows. If he didn't speak, it would be nearly impossible to detect his presence. Ryan, who do you want to scare? You're going too far. After hearing this, Ryan laughed at me. He walked to the bedside and gently held me in his arms. His warm body temperature passed through the thin pajamas to me, and his hand gently caressed my lower back. When he spoke again, his tone was filled with helplessness. Who was being unreasonable? Lily. First, you took it upon yourself to spend the night with me, and now, you plan to leave with my child? Ryan's insight was as accurate as ever. In my heart, I have long sketched a clear picture, searching for a peaceful little town with my child, where our simple happiness can take root. Avoid the disturbances of Luke, stay away from the entanglements of Ryan. After all, there was never a moment of clarity and transparency at the beginning between us. That was 3 months ago, on that special day, which happened to be my birthday, when spring was in full bloom. Luke took the initiative to suggest celebrating their birthday together before breaking up, seeking good luck and a peaceful separation. He reserved a charming restaurant, where the city's night view was fully visible through the window. He came to my house to pick me up, as if there had never been a rift between us. He personally presented the birthday cake, carefully lighting each candle, and softly said, "Come, make a wish." Under his encouragement, I closed my eyes with mixed emotions, silently reciting in my heart, "My wish is." After about 10 seconds of silence, I opened my eyes, but all I saw was an empty seat. Luke actually vanished without a trace. I waited patiently for a while, but he never showed up. Finally, the waiter came over and told me, "Mr. Luke received an urgent call and left in a hurry. He specifically instructed that you leave directly after your meal. He has settled all the expenses for tonight." I watched the candles on the cake slowly extinguish, the cream gradually collapsing, and the few happy birthday letters turning into unsightly red marks. I chuckled to myself in self-mockery, left the restaurant, and took a taxi to the port. When we were poor, Luke often took me there for walks, treating it as a cost-free trip. He always says that even without spectacular scenery, the sea breeze is a wonderful enjoyment. Time flies, the sea remains, but people are no longer the same as they were yesterday. I wandered around the port for a long time until a sudden exclamation rang in my ears, "Oh my, this is so romantic." I followed their gaze and saw countless drones in the night sky flashing lights, spelling out a romantic message, "Ivy, I love you." A few seconds later, the night sky transformed into a sea of flowers, dazzling to the extreme, breathtakingly beautiful. The passers-by exclaimed, "Heavens, which young master is expressing his affection this time?" Alas, today I am just an insignificant bystander again. I almost opened my moments with a self-torturing mindset. Sure enough, I saw Ivy's boastful words, "True love is, no matter when or where, as long as I call out, he can present a confession for me." The accompanying photo is the love vow drawn by the drone's lights. At the edge of the soul plunging into an abyss, one may perhaps walk towards madness, indistinguishable from a madman. Alcohol became my refuge in solitude. I purchased numerous drinks and lost myself in them alone. The bustling crowd by the sea cannot conceal the loneliness within me. Luke and Ivy are nestled together, surrounded by enthusiastic passers-by, as if they have never noticed my existence. Yet, I have quietly watched them for a long time from the shadows. It wasn't until only a desolate array of empty bottles surrounded me, and my vision became blurred, that I realized the danger of continuing to drink. I staggered to my feet and left the lively seaside. Walking alone on the road, I unexpectedly collided with someone. "Be careful." He firmly held my hand, steadying me. Looking up, I realized it was Ryan, a leader in the business world, the heir of the He Group. We have had several contacts due to business investments, and 2/3 of my family's wealth has almost benefited from his help. He is completely different from Luke, rarely surrounded by the opposite sex, and some even jokingly question whether he prefers the same sex, yet he never explains. "Lily?" He supported me, his brow furrowed. "Why did you drink so much?" His breath was fresh and pleasant, in stark contrast to the scent of ivy that always lingered on Luke. The alcohol clouded my reason with a thin mist, and I unexpectedly asked, "Ryan, they all say you prefer men, is that true?" The alcohol made my tongue sluggish, its effects spreading through my body. Ryan was first surprised, then sighed helplessly, carefully helping me into his Rolls-Royce. Perhaps it was his appearance that matched my aesthetic, perhaps the alcohol clouded my judgment, or perhaps I just wanted to get back at Luke. I slowly leaned closer to Ryan and gently kissed his cheek. He turned his head, looking at me in surprise, and in that moment, his pupils seemed to undergo a subtle change. A faint blush appeared on his cold, pale skin. Then, I boldly sat on him and softly asked, "Ryan, do you want to try it with me?" My lips gently brushed against his earlobe, and then I decisively kissed him. His ear slightly flushed. His voice rang out above me, a bit hoarse, "Lily, wake up a little." I replied with a smile, "I am awake." "I know you men all like young and beautiful women, with just a word of boredom, you can easily dismiss a woman." The heat on my body made me seek coolness, and he frowned slightly, a hint of complexity flashing in his eyes. I looked up again, longing for a kiss. This time, he did not shy away. His lips were cool and fresh, carrying the scent of mint. We kissed in the haze until I felt breathless. One hand cradled the back of my head, while the other gently caressed my waist, making it impossible for me to pull away. The partition in the car slowly rose, isolating us from the outside world. He finally let go of me, his voice even more hoarse, "Lily, I don't like men, and I don't like the young." The alcohol did not make me lose myself, but my thoughts were somewhat chaotic. While I was lost in thought, Ryan had already started the car. Soon, we arrived at our destination. He gently picked me up, crossed the villa's living room, and carefully placed me on the bed. He looked down at me, and my gaze lingered on his moist lips, freshly kissed, slightly swollen, and alluringly beautiful. I lowered my gaze, 2 buttons of his shirt collar were undone, and his collarbone was faintly visible in the air. He looked like an alluring male demon. He gently lifted the corners of his mouth and guided my hand under the hem of his shirt. "Lily, do you want it?" After a satisfying response, Ryan approached swiftly like a whirlwind and gently touched my lips. This time, his kiss was filled with depth and passion, as if silently expressing his intense desire for control deep within. As the passionate kiss slowly descended, he whispered in my ear, "Lily, do you like this feeling?" My cheeks felt as if they were being burned by fire, and I could only tightly grip the hem of Ryan's shirt, the initial restraint collapsing in that moment. At first, I tried hard to bite my lip, not allowing myself to easily reveal my inner feelings. However, under Ryan's relentless advances, I finally succumbed, burying my face deep in his neck, my voice choked, "I like, mm." He gently kissed my forehead with satisfaction. In the end, I quietly fell asleep in his arms. The next day, when I woke up, he was already gone. I understood his intention. Like me, he hated trouble. Since he chose to leave, I pretended that everything was normal, which was better for both of us. So, I quietly left, even deleting all his contact information to avoid any possible awkwardness. As for work matters, I will leave them to my subordinates to handle in the future, with clear boundaries between public and private affairs. From that time on, I never had any further interactions with Ryan. Until recently, I discovered that my period was delayed, and only then did I realize, after that moment of pleasure, I seemed to have forgotten to take my birth control pills. I quietly bought a pregnancy test and tested 5 times in a row, and the results all showed 2 obvious lines. This left me puzzled. After my last miscarriage, the doctor had told me that getting pregnant again would be very difficult. Yet, the result now is: Ryan actually succeeded on the first try? I fell into deep confusion. Logically, Ryan has the right to know all of this. However, thinking back to his attitude that day, I really can't be sure. To be cautious, I chose to remain silent, planning only to quickly distance myself from Luke and properly arrange the future for myself and the child. However, before the plan could be implemented, Ryan came knocking at the door. "Lily, why did you block me?" His lips gently brushed against my ear, his voice cool and magnetic, warm breath flowing into my ear with each word. "You're not regretting spending the spring night with me, are you?" His response left me stunned on the spot, as if struck by a bolt from the blue. I never expected his reaction to shielding his own behavior would be so intense. To eliminate any unnecessary misunderstandings, I have decided to clarify everything. "Ryan, we are both rational and mature adults." That night, I took the first step, so I was already prepared to bear the consequences. You can trace it back to the hospital, so you naturally understand. This child, I have decided to keep. I am financially independent, and I can take on the responsibility of raising the child by myself without causing you any trouble. If you still have concerns, we can sign a confidentiality agreement. Originally, Ryan was gently kissing my earlobe, but suddenly he stopped, and his voice became low. "Are you planning to bear this alone? What if that child asks about his father one day? What if he wants to see a photo of his father?" I have long pondered these questions. I will tell the child that his father has passed away. The photo can be synthesized through AI technology, and as for the cause of death, let's say it was a car accident. If you think that's inappropriate, you can come up with a more reasonable explanation. Of course, if you want to see the child in the future, that's also possible. Just have him call you Uncle. Ryan's brows were initially furrowed, but as my explanation came to an end, he couldn't help but laugh. "Call me uncle? Lily, what exactly do you take me for?" I was at a loss for words, feeling somewhat confused. I have envisioned all the escape routes for him. Why is he still not satisfied? "Ryan, I just didn't want to cause you too much trouble. After all, your departure that day was quite resolute." As I spoke, I carefully observed Ryan's expression, while speculating in my mind about other possible scenarios. Could it be that after learning of my pregnancy, he changed his mind and wanted to fight for custody of the child? Ryan took a deep breath a few times, then, with a hint of helplessness, spoke again. "I have never thought of you as a burden." I was slightly taken aback, and a ridiculous conjecture vaguely surged in my heart. Ryan gazed at me with deep eyes, explaining seriously and firmly, "That day, there was an emergency with the project at my branch in France, and I had to go handle it personally. I left you a note telling you to wait for my return." "So, you actually never saw that note?" "A note?" I really hadn't noticed. In this technologically advanced era, he actually still retains the habit of writing notes by hand. Besides, I was extremely embarrassed at that time and just wanted to escape from that place as soon as possible. I had no mind to check if there was a note left on the bedside. Ryan continued his explanation. "When I tried to contact you again, I found that you had blocked all my contact methods." "Lily, do you really see me as so unworthy?" I smiled awkwardly and said, "That's a bit too much. But we can't just rush into the halls of marriage because of one night of pleasure, can we?" He lowered his eyelids and asked me in return, "Why is it impossible?" I widened my eyes and asked incredulously, "Are you serious? Ryan, do you really long to have children this much?" Ryan's gaze was deep as he quietly watched me for a long time, a hint of laziness in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, Just consider it because I like children. I did not accept Ryan's invitation lightly. After all, his proposal was too bizarre. Luke and I once weathered storms together, and we also grew tired of each other. That long entanglement ultimately did not lead to a happy ending. I am determined not to hastily enter into the bonds of another marriage. Ryan didn't force me, he just insisted that I save his contact information again. He even reminded me to notify him for the next prenatal checkup. I couldn't help but frown in confusion. Is this really necessary? I have a delusion that his smile seems to hide a hint of gritted teeth. Didn't you say I like children? How could someone who likes children let you face the prenatal checkup alone? Fine, I respect his rights as the biological father of the child. Besides, he has played a crucial role in my business activities, so it's only right to give him some face. From that time on, Ryan began to take an interest in my daily life, even personally selecting baby products for me. Once, he even brought back a masterfully handcrafted crib from Europe during a business trip, filled with various diapers and baby skincare products. He seemed really looking forward to the birth of the child. As time passed day by day, these things gradually became commonplace. Until half a month later, at an auction, Ryan and I entered together and unexpectedly ran into Luke. Ivy tightly held Luke's hand, her eyes revealing an unmistakable arrogance. At the moment of reunion, Luke saw me standing next to Ryan and couldn't help but freeze for a moment. He seemed to want to say something, but was interrupted by Ivy. Darling, I'm a bit tired, will you accompany me over there to rest? As she left, she didn't forget to look back and give me a mocking smile. I ignored it because I was pregnant, and I had to try to avoid these negative emotions. The exhibits at the auction did not attract me much, I was not interested in them. Until a necklace came into view, one that I had admired for many years. The starting price was $800,000, and I raised my paddle without hesitation. Ivy, unwilling to back down, followed closely behind. In the end, Luke raised his paddle, $3 million. He knew I had long desired that necklace, yet he still competed with me, deliberately giving it to Ivy. I looked at them, just as I met Ivy's triumphant gaze. She might not really like that necklace, she just wanted to make me feel uncomfortable. $3 million, the first time. $3 million, the second time. I didn't continue to raise the paddle. Ryan wanted to increase the bid, but I stopped him. $5 million? Are you crazy? He said innocently, $5 million isn't expensive, don't you like it very much? I scoffed lightly and said, how can it not be expensive? You just haven't experienced poverty. Only those who have truly experienced poverty can understand the value of $5 million. During the low points of life, one might go all out for 500 yuan. However, for Ryan, who has never experienced the hardships of the world, this may forever be an incomprehensible concept. I gently shook my head, don't argue, I don't like making losing deals. Luke's $3 million has far exceeded the value of that necklace. If he wants to be a fool, then let him be. After all, Luke had already signed the property division agreement. Every penny he spends now is his own. I wish he would spend more and become poorer. $3 million, the third time. Deal. The fall of the auction hammer signified the end of everything. As it concluded, the crowd gradually dispersed. Ivy deliberately walked over to me, and before she finished speaking, a sense of showiness emanated from her. Lily, are you angry? Luke's inappropriate behavior is all because he has feelings for me, why not let me lend him to you for a moment to admire? Luke silently followed behind her, his gaze deeply fixed on the scene. His favoritism towards Ivy was evident, allowing her to provocatively showcase herself in front of me time and again. I smiled faintly and said calmly, no need, I'm not very interested in it. If you like it, take it. After all, what you cherish holds no value for me. As the words fell, I cast a meaningful glance at Luke beside her. A shadow immediately crossed Luke's face, and a flicker of anger appeared in his eyes. Lily, how could you become so sharp-tongued? It's just a necklace, why be so harsh? Even so, I will compensate you with another one in the future. I was slightly taken aback, Then I looked at him firmly. No need, as you said, it's just a necklace. I don't lack anything. Luke was momentarily at a loss for words, as if he had just remembered some old matters. I used to be a jewelry designer, and he used the copyright of my designs to exchange for millions in funding as the starting capital for the company. With tears in his eyes, he held me tightly and promised that in the future he would adorn me with countless dazzling jewels. However, in the end, he only gave me an extremely ordinary ring. I spent 4 years with him, being his wife for 3 years, and he easily deceived me out of my precious 7 years with a trivial diamond. A promise is only sincere at the moment it is spoken, and sincerity, however, is unpredictable. Love comes to an end, and we go our separate ways, relying only on our conscience. Now, he owns the company, and I have also established my own business. My jewelry design brand enjoys a global reputation, and I can buy everything I love myself. I no longer need to rely on him. Luke seemed to recall the past, his gaze slightly confused. When he looked at me again, there was unexpectedly a hint of regret and nostalgia in his eyes. Just then, Ryan's tall figure suddenly intervened, completely cutting off Luke's gaze. His voice was lazy, yet laced with sarcasm. "Mr. Luke, it's been years since we last met, and your taste has changed so much that you've actually started to like green tea?" When the term green tea was mentioned, Ryan glanced at Ivy casually. Ivy struggled to suppress her anger, but her expression was almost twisted. I was too lazy to continue watching this play and said softly, "Ryan, let's go." I openly called his name, which seemed to please Ryan. He smiled slightly, revealing a curve. I thought everything had come to an end, and I could finally enjoy a moment of peace. However, Luke suddenly had a change of heart. In the stillness of the deep night, I always liked to put my phone on silent to escape the noise of the world. But that morning, I was disturbed by the numbers flashing on the screen, over 30 missed calls and a message notification reading 99+. All these messages were from Luke, and their content was roughly as follows: "Lily, we need to talk. I'm coming to find you. There's no one at home. Where are you now? Why did you go to the obstetrics and gynecology department last time? Are you pregnant? If you really are pregnant, I promise I won't leave you. If you don't reply, I'll just wait for you at the door. Lily, why didn't you come back all night? Why did you even fire the maid? The reason is simple, I have already left that place." The home filled with Luke's life made me feel suffocated, so I chose to sell the property. After learning of this, Ryan, as the father of the child, generously offered a villa on an island and arranged for a private doctor and caregiver. The island's scenery is enchanting, and the climate is pleasant, making it an ideal place for pregnancy. I did not refuse. After all, who would turn down such a good opportunity? Since Ryan wanted to enjoy his rights as a father, he was naturally willing to take on the corresponding responsibilities. This is the equivalent exchange between us, a tacit understanding that gradually developed. As for Luke, according to the agreement, he still has a large amount of property that has not been transferred to me. At this point, if he wants to back out, it is too late. I immediately returned the call. Luke's voice came through the receiver, tired and hoarse. "Lily, I asked the previous maids, and they said you've been taking medication to maintain the pregnancy. If this is true, then we can temporarily set aside the idea of separating. I have already lost my patience. When luck is not on your side, even medication can be secretly observed and leaked by the servants. Fortunately, I have long understood that the truth cannot be hidden forever, and I am ready." Before Luke could finish speaking, I calmly interrupted him. "I am indeed pregnant." "But Luke, who says the child is yours?" There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could even hear Luke's rapid breathing. After a while, he coldly retorted, "Lily, what do you mean by that?" In the long river of time, Luke was like a tenacious hunter, relentlessly tracking based on clues until he discovered my whereabouts. At that moment, I was playing with the little yellow puppy, enjoying the peaceful time. The little yellow one, this gentle life, always habitually curled up by my feet, basking in the warmth of the sun. Luke's appearance was like a sudden crack that shattered my peace. His gaze was serious, clearly shaken by the scene before him. So you are really here? I remember, this estate was supposed to belong to the He family. His gaze was like a sharp arrow, aimed directly at my abdomen, trying to uncover all the secrets within. When exactly did you? I tilted my head slightly and smiled, replying, do you remember my birthday? The night you hurriedly left to confess to Ivy with a drone. Luke's eyes widened in disbelief. Finally, his voice trembled, carrying a hint of cold incredulity. Lily, we haven't broken up yet, and you can't wait to betray me like this. In his eyes, I seemed to be an unforgivable traitor, while he wore the guise of a victim. I couldn't help but sneer and retort, the women around you come and go, entangled with Ivy until she got pregnant. Have you ever thought of me? He knew he was in the wrong and fell silent. After a long pause, he reluctantly suggested, Lily, if you have the baby aborted, we won't make a fuss anymore. I'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the marriage certificate, and we'll get married and live well from now on, okay? I laughed to the point of tears, my gaze sharp as I stared into his eyes. Terminate? Do you think that's possible? I've had a miscarriage, and the doctor said it's hard for me to get pregnant again. Have you forgotten why I miscarried in the first place? What right do you have to decide my child's future? His body swayed gently, a flicker of pain in his eyes. All right, then you give birth. Once your body recovers, we can have another child, okay? I almost laughed out loud, looking at him with a gaze that was almost sympathetic. Do you hear what you're saying? He had red eyes, making the final compromise. Lily, for you, I can accept this child. At that moment, a low, mocking laugh came from not far away, and Ryan made his entrance. He casually unbuttoned his shirt, spoke lazily, but each word pierced the heart. You want my child to call you Dad? Do you deserve it? The atmosphere instantly became tense, swords drawn and bows bent. Luke saw Ryan, as if he had touched a reverse scale, and charged forward madly. Ryan. It's you. However, his anger did not last long, as the bodyguards quickly subdued him. He seemed to forget whose territory this was. Luke's eyes were bloodshot as he tried to break free from the bodyguards, determined to fight Ryan to the death. But reality is always cruel. With a gentle push from the bodyguard, he fell awkwardly to the ground. Ryan elegantly crossed his legs and sat on the sofa, examining him with an expressionless face, his gaze as cold as ice. Will you leave on your own, or should I have my people throw you out? I was somewhat surprised. Although Ryan held a prestigious position, I had never seen him humiliate others like this. Luke stood alone, powerless even though he felt unwilling in his heart. His face was pale as he struggled to stand up and handed me an exquisite blue velvet box. I didn't open it, I already knew the contents in my heart. It was the necklace that Ivy had taken away, the beloved item I had longed for. He looked down and told me, Lily, on the day of the auction, I didn't really want to take away something you cherished. I just wanted to make you jealous, to make you submit to me. I've already gotten the necklace back, and I will make Ivy get rid of the child. Don't you like this necklace very much? Let's get back together, okay? Yes, I used to like it so much. He clearly knew, yet he still used it to hurt me, to trample on my self-esteem. He understood that every time I cried for him, it was like a knife cutting through my heart. Yet he continued to hurt me again and again. I said calmly, I don't like it anymore. Neither the necklace nor you. Luke's face was pale. Lily, stop being stubborn. Do you really want to part ways with me? I only find it laughable. Once, he was the one who hurt me the most, and now he pretends to be the victim. I gently pulled back the hem of my clothes and said firmly, Luke, you are the one who destroyed everything with your own hands. If we are to part, let it be complete, don't make me look down on you anymore. 3 days later, Luke and I completed the final procedures for the property transfer in the solemn atmosphere of the notary office. Luke looked utterly exhausted, the shadows under his eyes revealing his sleepless nights. At this moment, no matter what his situation was, it had nothing to do with me. At the crossroads of our life journeys, we parted ways. He seemed to have something to say to me, but Ivy's appearance interrupted him. Ivy's face lost its usual gentle hypocrisy. replaced by an expression of anger and resentment. Luke. She already has a child with someone else, why are you still giving her so much? I thought you only gave her a breakup fee, but who knew you even transferred that villa worth 80 million to her? Ivy's emotions were almost out of control. Have you ever thought about me and the child in my womb? I frowned slightly. Perhaps Ivy didn't know that what Luke gave me was far more than just a breakup fee. Every profit from his business successes, every accumulation of wealth, has my share in it. If it weren't for me back then, how could he have achieved what he has today? What I received was merely my rightful share. Ivy appeared overly anxious. Luke's love was like a swift river, but it was also fleeting. Her image of a wife quickly crumbled, and it was not a wise choice. Lily, don't think you can get away with this. Ivy accused me uncontrollably, rushing towards me in a fit of rage. Enough. Luke shouted to stop her, timely preventing her actions. How much longer are you going to embarrass yourself here? Ivy was stopped, her body trembled, her eyes immediately reddened, and she fiercely threw her designer bag at Luke. Embarrassed? How can you treat me like this? Since you broke up with her, do you still want to protect her? The crowd watching grew larger, and Luke's expression became increasingly impatient, finally erupting, even if I'm not with Lily, I won't marry you. Ivy was stunned on the spot, and then, as if she realized something, she panicked and rushed forward, trying to grab Luke's hand. However, Luke coldly pushed her away, saying, "Stay away from me." At that moment, an accident happened. Even though Ivy was pregnant, she still acted as she pleased, wearing high heels. She was used to using these to show Luke's affection for her. But Luke's shove caused her to lose her balance and fall down the steps. She fell to the ground, her face pale, her hands tightly clutching her belly, pleading in pain, "My baby. Luke, my stomach hurts so much." Luke witnessed this scene, panic-stricken. A few seconds later, blood flowed between Ivy's legs. My heart jolted as I recalled how my child with Luke had also left me in this way. Is this the arrangement of fate? Perhaps those who are cold-hearted are destined to have shallow familial bonds. Maybe the child could already sense in the womb that they were not loved by their father, and thus, sadly chose to leave. Although the world is beautiful, it is unwilling to come to this world. After the turmoil with Ivy, my relationship with Ryan inevitably reached the ears of the He family. The next day, Ryan's grandfather couldn't wait to summon him back to the old house and specifically requested to meet with me. On the way to the ride, my heart raced, feeling nervous and uneasy. Ryan softly reassured me, saying that his grandfather was actually very kind. I decided to trust his words. However, the moment I stepped into the old house, the old man's brows were tightly furrowed, never relaxing. Despite his advanced age and unsteady steps, his dignified face and innate aura of authority still commanded respect. He squinted his eyes and firmly ordered, "Kneel." This command echoed in the hall. Ryan unhesitatingly took off his suit jacket and knelt straight down. I followed closely, my body trembling involuntarily. My heart was filled with doubt. Did I also have to kneel? Just as I was hesitating, the grandfather of the He family turned his gaze towards me, and his attitude instantly became friendly. "Girl, don't be nervous, just sit down. I'm not that kind of villain. I just want to teach this guy who bullies you a lesson. You can just watch from the sofa." With the help of the He family's butler, I sat down. Ryan's gaze met mine, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly, signaling me not to panic. It seemed he was already accustomed to such situations. But I still underestimated his endurance. He actually spoke up, saying, "Grandpa, Lily is already sitting, so I might as well not kneel." Before his words fell, Old Master He immediately became furious, raising his cane and striking his back fiercely. "You little brat. You still have the face to talk back. Have you forgotten the family rules? I introduced you to so many potential matches before, and you refused to meet any of them. Now you've caused such a mess. The family is in disgrace." The old man scolded and hit him, the force growing stronger. I was stunned by everything in front of me. What era is this? they still use family rules. Ryan is thriving outside, but when he comes home, he has to bow his head. I couldn't bear it and tried to plead, "Grandpa, actually this matter is not Ryan's fault." That night, I was drunk. My words were interrupted by Ryan's grandfather. "Don't plead for him." "What about him? If he hadn't harbored evil thoughts, would you have this disgrace?" Clearly, he took advantage of the situation. I must teach him a good lesson. The old man's cane fell on Ryan like raindrops, and a few minutes later, his white shirt was stained with blood. I hurriedly blocked the old man's cane. "You can't hit anymore." But the old man was relentless, still trying to reclaim his cane. In the scuffle, Ryan, who had been kneeling, suddenly stood up and positioned himself behind me. "Grandpa, you can hit me, but please don't hurt Lily. She's pregnant." As soon as the words left his mouth, Ryan's grandfather's hand froze in midair, and a few seconds later, a glimmer of surprise flashed in his eyes. "A child? Are you saying I'm going to have a great-grandson?" Ryan was taken aback. "You called me back to teach me a lesson, and you didn't even know she was pregnant?" Ryan's grandfather shook his head in confusion. It turned out he had only heard a rough idea and didn't know that I was already carrying Ryan's child. I originally came for the custody of the child, but unexpectedly heard Ryan's grandfather asking us when we were getting married. I was confused by the old man's sudden change and had to explain, "I'm sorry, Grandpa. I have no plans to get married for the time being." Ryan's grandfather fell silent for a moment, glaring at Ryan with dissatisfaction. "You little brat, you're so useless that you can't even chase a wife." He said this without any regard for me. I awkwardly turned my head, but I heard Ryan's amused voice beside me. "Well, it's my fault for being so stupid. I've been trying hard. I'll work even harder from now on." On that quiet night, Ryan's grandfather warmly arranged for us to spend the night in his old house, rich with a sense of history. He seemed to casually hint at the tension in the room, cleverly placing me in a cozy bedroom with Ryan. The old man's intentions were clearly written on his face, unmistakable. The bedroom is primarily decorated in a minimalist style with black and white tones, every detail exuding Ryan's personal touch. Clearly, this is his private sanctuary. Ryan took off his bloodstained shirt, revealing a posture of seeking help, asking me to assist him with his wound. His skin was as pale as snow, and the bruises and wounds appeared even more glaring under the light. I carefully took the ointment and gently applied it to his back, where my fingertips touched. A slight warmth emanated. At this moment, Ryan's hoarse and deep voice sounded. "My grandfather has always hoped that I could start a family and establish a career. The enthusiasm today may make you feel uncomfortable, please understand." I replied softly, indicating that I understood. After all, the wishes of the elders are always for the younger generation to thrive and prosper. After applying the ointment, I took a deep breath, and my gaze involuntarily wandered around the room. Suddenly, a pair of exquisite cufflinks on the cabinet caught my attention. They were so familiar that I couldn't help but walk over, my mood suddenly shocked. "Ryan, how do you have these cufflinks?" Ryan's gaze shifted from the cufflinks to my face, paused for a moment, then he slightly lowered his head and said with a complex tone, "It's what you gave me." I was filled with confusion. How is that possible? "I sold these cufflinks 8 years ago." Ryan picked up the cufflinks, took a deep breath as if preparing himself mentally for what he was about to say, and then slowly explained, 8 years ago, there was a girl selling things at the university gate, and she sold me these cufflinks. There are 6 blue and white diamonds in this pair, exquisitely crafted, rivaling any luxury brand, but she only sold them to me for 800 yuan. She told me this was her design, not from a prestigious brand, and not worth much. She sold it just to buy her boyfriend a new phone. At this point, Ryan's gaze lifted, revealing a hint of self-deprecating smile. At that time, I thought she was beautiful, and a bit silly. I often passed by there during that period and could always see her in front of the stall. If she didn't have a boyfriend, I would definitely have pursued her. Later, she graduated, I went abroad, and I thought our worlds would never intersect again. His voice gradually grew deeper. However, a few years later, her work unexpectedly appeared at global jewelry auctions. Later on, she came to me with her own jewelry brand. I watched her walk towards me step by step, and that silent heart began to beat again. But all these years, my cultivation had always reminded me that she already had someone she loved, and I could never disturb her. As night fell, the lights in the room cast a faint yellow glow, and the night breeze slipped through the window screen, bringing a hint of coolness. Ryan's tone grew softer. That night, you stumbled into my arms, dazed. And I quietly listened to it all. At that moment, Ryan's hands were cradling my face, and his lips pressed down heavily, turning all words into a silent promise. As time passed, I gained a beautiful little princess, whose presence brought gentle care and endless joy to my life. During that time, Ryan was always by my side, his warmth and steadfastness following me like a shadow, but my heart never fully opened to him. When faced with his proposal, I delayed giving a response. There was no particular reason for this, rather, I had reservations about entering into a relationship again. Only by truly experiencing the taste of constraint can one deeply understand the value of freedom. Love and marriage, after all, are two different things, and I did not want to rashly step into that unknown territory. I named my daughter Chloe, hoping she would be smart and clever, and my wish came true. From her wobbly steps in childhood to her entry into school as a teenager, time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 7 years have passed. Rumors about Ryan vary in the outside world. Some have transformed him from the once promising president of the Gay Association into today's golden bachelor. Yet Ryan always patiently explains, I am neither gay nor single, I have a beloved girlfriend. Moreover, I have a beautiful and lovely daughter. Although Ryan's grandfather is in good health, he always teases him in a reproachful tone, you may have a girlfriend and a daughter, but you don't have a wife. Your daughter calls you uncle. Ryan could only remain silent in helplessness. Chloe has understood since she was little that Ryan is her father. However, she relies on me too much, and whenever Ryan comes to visit us, she always likes to cling to me, like a child depends on her mother. Chloe can only be taken to play elsewhere by her grandmother. Therefore, she deliberately calls him Uncle Ryan. Whenever Uncle Ryan encounters difficulties with his daughter, he comes to me at night feeling desolate. He held me tightly, kissing me repeatedly, his tone filled with endless complaints, Lily, you heartless one. How long will it take for you to give me a title? He gently pinched my waist, and I lazily poked his abs, smiling as I said, let's see how you perform tonight, and also how I feel tomorrow. Ryan complained that I only gave him blank checks. However, immediately after, his head lowered even more, and the kisses became hotter and more focused. Later, I heard from a friend that Luke's journey in life had come to an end. After losing her child, Ivy's emotions were like a wild horse that had broken free, tightly entwined with Luke, unwilling to let go. She used threats to force Luke to marry her, promising to take care of her for the rest of her life. However, Luke's feelings for her had long since vanished, and he naturally would not easily concede, even entertaining the idea of having her removed from the company. In her desperation, Ivy chose to take a risk. She took advantage of her position to leak company secrets to competitors and secretly revealed many financial issues within the company. Under a series of attacks from Ivy, Luke was exhausted from coping, first losing several important orders, then facing a break in the cash flow, and ultimately leading the company to bankruptcy. Under the dual pressure of anger and despair, after an intense argument, Luke lost control and pushed her down the stairs. Perhaps it was because he felt hopeless about the future, disheartened, that Luke followed her. I heard this news, and simply responded lightly, I see. My heart had long been as calm as water. As time passed, hearing the name Luke again felt as distant as a memory from another world. My friend still sighed, looking back at those years in school, you were such a perfect match. I still remember how Luke brought you lunch every day, helped you with your studies, and couldn't be away from you for a single day. At that time, everyone in the dorm knew how much he loved you. But how could such a vibrant life just disappear without a trace? I listened quietly, as if I were hearing a stranger's story. Mom, come play. Not far away, my daughter reached out her little hand to me. Ryan is playing with his daughter, tossing a frisbee with the dog. I quickly hung up the phone, took the frisbee my daughter handed me, and threw it into the distance. The dog happily runs on the grass, and the daughter lets out a clear, ringing laugh. Ryan cast a gentle gaze, a gaze filled with tenderness. In that moment, time seemed so tranquil and beautiful. The story ends.